Once again, Joseline Nicholas. I am a local real estate investor and real estate agent here in Southern Ontario. I started investing in real estate maybe I'm going to say about 8 years ago. And over the last years, I've just been observing from my own experiences and from my other investors' experiences as well. And I've seen some of the top 5 mistakes that I see a lot of investors make. To be honest with you, I have made some of these mistakes myself, but over time I have grown, and now I can come here and speak as to some of the common mistakes that I see a lot of people make. And to be honest with you, a lot of people end up failing in real estate investing, or they end up taking real estate investing as a really bad idea, a really bad strategy, and they quit altogether. So I hope that bringing this video to you, you would learn something such that you can avoid these mistakes altogether and you don't have to have bad experiences or lose money like other investors have done. So to start, the number 1 mistake that I see a lot of investors make is lack of a clear strategy. This was me about 8 years ago when we didn't really know what strategies are there. We didn't know a lot about investing. So what we did is we bought a property and we assumed that that was all we had to do. But we didn't run our numbers because we didn't really have a strategy. And we just bought a property and hoped everything worked out okay. There are a lot of ways to make money in real estate investing. You could be doing flipping. In this case, where you're looking for quick cash, so basically to make a lot of money, or even on average about $50,000 per flip. So if you're looking for quick cash, you should be looking at flipping. If you're looking for buy and hold, in this case, you're looking to build equity over a long time period. So, or you can also do what we call a BRRRR, which is a buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. In this case, people are just looking to buy as many properties as they can with the same amount of capital. So if you have $200,000 to invest, how can you use that $200,000 over a long time period and buy multiple properties? One way to do it is through a BRRRR strategy. Or if you don't have capital at all, but you want to take part in real estate investing, you can also do wholesaling, which is a situation where you find a property and you find another buyer and you're kind of like the middleman, the deal finder, and you basically don't invest any of your money, but you invest your skills and your talent and the ability to find a deal. So you have to know as an investor before you buy any property what your strategy is, because if you don't know your strategy, we run numbers differently based on basically what your end goal is. And for you to know your end goal, you for sure have to know what your strategy is. What strategy are you going for? If you're doing a BRRRR or doing a flip, the numbers are going to look differently. So for sure, always before you buy any property, know your strategy and basically run your numbers based on the strategy or the desired outcome. So don't make that mistake. Don't be one of those investors who don't know what strategy they're after. Mistake number 2 that I see a lot of investors make, believe it or not, is not analyzing their numbers. I've seen a lot of investors who buy properties simply because somebody told them that it was a good deal. No matter who says it, let alone the listing agent. Do not listen to the listing agent. If they tell you that this is a good deal, it could be a good deal. Some people are honest and they're truthful. Still, the responsibility lies on the investor to run your numbers, to clearly understand the assumptions that they are making, and to make sure that those numbers work with your strategy. I see a lot of this mistake with new builds. When people see new builds, they automatically assume that the fact that it's going to close in 5 years means that it will have appreciated in 5 years. That does not mean that it's a good deal. I have seen builders sell properties for like $900,000, but the same property that is already as a resale on the market is selling for $800,000. So if you buy a new build hoping that in 5 years it will have appreciated and you're banking on appreciation, I wouldn't do it as an investor. So just make sure that before you buy a property, run your numbers. Do not trust anyone. Do not even trust me as your realtor. Make sure that those numbers that you're running, you understand what assumptions are going into those calculations and that you're okay with it. That way, if something goes wrong, you don't blame anybody. You don't say, oh, this person made me buy this deal and it wasn't a good deal. The responsibility of running the numbers lies on you as an investor. So make sure you run your numbers correctly. Mistake number 3 that I see our real estate investors make is over improving the property. This happens a lot with flips, where people buy a property, they run their numbers, they know what their strategy is, but when they buy the property, they over improve it. The rule of thumb that I always tell my clients is to look at comparables. When you buy a property in an average income neighborhood and you end up over improving it, chances are that you'll not recoup your capital. If you have like this luxury property in an average market, for sure you will not recoup your capital. And as an investor, if you don't recoup your capital, you lose money. The goal is to always recoup our capital plus profits. So make sure that you're not over improving. And as I said, if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, just look at comparable properties that have sold on the street. These will stay as a benchmark. One of the things that I have done myself, I've made this mistake before myself. At one point, we bought a property and it was such a beautiful property, needed a lot of renovations. But one thing we didn't realize is that all the comparables had unfinished basements. And our property that we bought also had an unfinished basement. And we went ahead, finished the basement, but every comparable on the street was unfinished basement. So in a sense, when I go back and I look at those numbers, I feel like we could have achieved the same amount of return without finishing the basement. So for sure, make sure that you're looking at your comparables and that you're not over improving the property, because the chances of you recouping your capital become really slim. So that is mistake number 3. Mistake number 4 that I see a lot of investors make, and this is a big one. This is really a big one, and one of the reasons why most people will not even invest in real estate. And this is poor tenant selection. I could not overemphasize this. A lot of people hate real estate investing. They have left, they quit investing at all just because they had one bad tenant. And this is totally unavoidable. This is avoidable 100%. I do acknowledge that these things you cannot control. Sometimes you don't really know who this person is until they're in your property, but there's a lot of things that you can do to eliminate that. Number 1 is to have a process in place. Do not rent your property out simply because you don't want it to sit vacant. Make sure that you have a process. You take every single person through that process. In our case, we do have a process. It's, I think, probably like a 6-step process where we take through every single person, be it a relative, a neighbor, anybody we know, if they're looking to rent our property, we will have to take them through this process to make sure that we don't skip any step and to make sure that we know exactly who they are. We've double-checked their income. We've double-checked their employment, they're still employed. We've double-checked their credit score. We know if they've been in trouble before for not paying for something. Like, we want to know them. And once we find the correct tenant, we treat them correctly. We treat them well. We have good properties. And in the end, we have a good long-term relationship. That is what we're always looking for. So do not skip any steps in the process. Another way to do this is to hire a good property management company to do this for you. So if you don't have a process and you have no idea what you're doing in terms of selecting a tenant, work with a property manager or work with some realtors who are investors. They know how to select good tenants. You could also work with a realtor, and not just any realtor. Just work with somebody who has experience in this field and they can help you select your tenants. But this is one of the big reasons as to why people fail in real estate, because they have a bad tenant, and a bad tenant can cost you a lot of money. One thing actually that we do, my husband and I, is that sometimes we'll let our properties sit for a month on the market just so we can find the right person. Like, that is how important it is to us. If we don't have enough time to get a tenant in there, we will wait. We will just sit vacant for 1 full month. Here in Ontario, our vacancy rate is pretty low. So on average, it takes us about 2 weeks to find a good tenant. But I'm telling you that if it doesn't happen within that 2 weeks, we'll sit vacant for 1 week, for one additional month, just because it is more important for us to have a good tenant than to just fill the space. The worst thing you can do is fill the space without vetting the person. Make sure you always select a good tenant, because this is one of the big reasons. Once you have the wrong tenant in there, it's so impossible to get them out. Sometimes they damage the property. I've seen a lot of horror stories, and one way to avoid it is to always have a process. And sometimes I also feel like sometimes as an investor, you have a gut feeling. Sometimes when I meet someone, I know this person, like I just feel good about them. I will still take them through the process, but still do trust your instinct. If you don't feel right about someone, even if they check all the boxes and everything is perfect, sometimes I still reevaluate and wait until I find somebody who I know is perfect for that space. The fifth mistake that I see a lot of investors make, and this is usually amateur investors, people who are just starting in year 1 or 2, majority of them, they get trapped in what I call analysis paralysis. They want to find the perfect deal, but sometimes they don't even know what that perfect deal is. A lot of the times when I see this problem, there's also a little bit of problem number 1, which is not knowing what the strategy is. So somebody will look and look and look for a year. They're still waiting to find a good deal. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, there's amazing deals, amazing properties in the market or even off market on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. There's no way you should be sitting looking for a property for a year. A lot of the times, people aren't clear about their strategy, which leads them to this problem number 5 of analysis paralysis. I have even some of my clients get trapped in this problem. They've been sitting. In fact, I know someone who's been sitting for 5 years looking for a property. For the last 5 years, in the last 5 years, on average in Ontario, properties have doubled in value. So if they could have afforded a property for $500,000 5 years ago, they had a down payment, they had everything they need, but they've been waiting for the right deal for the last 5 years. They have lost a lot of money. They literally could have grown their portfolio by at least $500,000 because, as I said, properties have doubled in Ontario in the last 5 years. So always know that if you're looking at a property today, it ticks all the boxes and you choose not to buy it, 2 months from now, that same property, you probably will pay an additional 3% for it, because in Ontario, we've seen appreciation, especially this year, we saw 30% appreciation. So if you were this person who were waiting to time the market, that's another thing that I also see with analysis paralysis. Timing the market, waiting for the bubble to pop, all these things. Like, as an investor, I believe that it's all about the time in the market as opposed to timing the market. Because if you're waiting for the bubble to pop or for this to happen or that to happen, chances are it will never happen. There's one saying that I hear a lot with experienced investors. They say the best time to buy a property was 5 years ago. The next best time is now. So if you get trapped in analysis paralysis, or you're waiting, or you find yourself it's taking you a year to find a property, just know that it's not about finding the property. I think there's another underlying issue which you might have to work with or deal with. In most cases, which it is, you need to decide on a strategy. And once you decide on a strategy, get clear of what you're looking for, what location. Once you have clarity of what you're looking for, it's so easy to find. I find with my clients, when we clearly define what we're looking for, it takes about 3 weeks to find a deal. Sometimes for more challenging deals like burrs are kind of hard to come by sometimes because you're looking for a property that's very specifically meet that criteria. In this case, it could take about 2 months to find. But if you're finding that it's taking you 6 months to find a property, just know that maybe you need to get a little bit clearer on what you're looking for. And once you become clear on what you're looking for, you'll find a deal. So those are the top 5 mistakes that I see a lot of investors make in Ontario. I have made some of those mistakes myself. As I said, we had a property that we over improved by finishing a basement. We think that we probably could have gotten the same amount of return without finishing the basement, which would have been higher profits for us. But over time, I have learned that sometimes you have to make these mistakes to learn. The worst thing you can do is stay in the same position for a long time. Like this analysis paralysis situation, if you don't buy anything for the next 5 years, you still be where you are 5 years from now. I think it's okay to learn and grow, make mistakes, but for sure, now that you've heard about them, I hope that will help you avoid some of these things. Thank you very much.